This week, the agenda asked, why are you being so rude? Pondered the merits of walking in the forest and heard from a former Monty Python member concerned with geographic literacy. The agenda's Week in Review begins with a 3 decades-long career politician on departing Parliament Hill. Why did you decide to leave Parliament before the next election?
Well, this opportunity came up that I was asked to begin work in Matawa, the area north of Thunder Bay, and working with the First Nations there on this huge mineral find, which is called the Ring of Fire. Companies are getting involved, and the First Nations were concerned about it. They very much wanted me to work with them. I said I would, so I went up, did a lot of work, and as I started getting around to the communities and visiting people, it became very clear to me that I couldn't do that and be an MP at the same time. It just, in terms of time and everything else, it just wasn't going to work. So I had I guess a real kind of set to with myself and said, well, this has been something I've been interested in my whole political career, going back to the very beginning of my federal career and then later on as a provincial member and premier. And this is an opportunity to do something for something that I believe in needs to be done.
You know Bob Nixon, right?
I know Bob Nixon very well.
You do indeed. You appointed him Agent General to
the
good
UK. Friend of mine. I had a good email exchange with him today.
Well, did you see what he wrote about you?
I did.
The indications are that Rae will devote himself to the affairs of First Nations in Northern Ontario as they negotiate their participation in the newly revealed resources to be developed there. Not a sufficient challenging alternative in my mind, writes the former leader of the Ontario Liberal Party.
You know, the way Bob always holds back, you know, I sent him a little email note saying, you know, a much grimmer view than the one that I have. And I think there are people who feel that way and other people who I think understand the extent of the challenge across the country. I know that there were a lot of people who wanted me to stay on and work as an MP. A lot of people wanted me to stay on and work in the next election, including the leader. Mr. Trudeau made it very clear he wanted me to stay, and I appreciated that. And it didn't make the choice any easier, but ultimately I had to follow what I thought was the right thing for me to do at this stage in my life, and because of when you look at it, Steve, the fact is, as a country, we have one group of people who were here before any Europeans or other people got here, who have been really excluded from the center of our public life, of our political life, and of our economic life, and this can't go on. You can look back and explain historically how things have happened, but now you can't use as an excuse. You've got to look at the condition that people are living in and say we've got to do more to fix this over time. Not going to happen instantaneously, but it is, in my opinion, the real unfinished business of Canada.
It's hard to remember a time in your life or mine where politicians were held in lower esteem than now. You've got 2 mayors of Montreal basically frog marched out of the building. You've got a mayor in Toronto who the Toronto Star says smoked crack cocaine on video. The mayor of London is under indictment, former Liberal MP as well. You know, very poisonous relations in the House of Commons, some crazy things going on at Queen's Park too. What's going on?
Well, first of all, municipal politics, I would observe, is one of the tougher environments to work in, and there will always be, and always have been, in every level of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, people, either public servants or elected people, who try to take advantage of the system, and that's terrible when it happens,
worse when it's ex-journalists doing it. Well,
you know, it's terrible when it happens, and it's sad to see it happen in many cases, because it's a lot of we all know each other, right? Everybody knows people who have been appointed to the Senate. We all know the people who've. I know all the people, you know, in politics in Queen's Park. I know the people at the municipal level, both in Toronto and Montreal, and it's a hugely sad event when these kinds of allegations come up and when we don't know exactly what happened and we're still going through this very difficult public process. You know what? I'm not sure that it's actually true to say that this is a unique period in our history. These problems happen. If you go back and look at the stuff that people said about Sir John A. or the Pacific scandal, when people said he was done, you know, he took 10 grand from the Canadian Pacific, and everything else. I mean, every government, even the people that we revere, Tommy Douglas's government in Saskatchewan, if you look back at the history, he was being pilloried a lot of the time for issues and for so-called conflicts of interest affecting members of his cabinet and so on. You go back, it was never a picnic. It's never been a picnic, and it isn't a picnic. But I do think it's troublesome. What's happening now is, I think this way in which people are trying to literally suppress voter interest. And there is a Republican conservative movement in North America to really try to suppress as much as possible the participation in voting so they'll have a better chance of winning. And I think the rest of us who are not Republican conservatives need to be much tougher about what's actually happening in politics today, because this, I can tell you, I mean, just you look at the House of Commons, we have to do more analytical work on analyzing how these guys are, how questions are being asked and how answers are being given. We need to begin to dissect this process because it's so unhealthy. Give you an answer, and then imagine if we'd had this interview and you asked me a question and I said, and then I spent the next 10 seconds or 30 seconds or 50 seconds telling everybody what a lousy guy you are. I mean, it would be ridiculous in a conversation. It'd be absurd. But there's this tremendous tendency to say, well, we have to get our message across. And every moment we have to communicate, we will use to give our message, which is partly a positive message about how wonderful we are, and then it's a negative message about how terrible whoever's asking the question is.
And we wonder why people are turned off politics.
I mean, it's been said, this is not original to me, many other people have said this, but if Chrysler and GM and Toyota tried to sell cars the same way, nobody would buy cars.
Right.
And it's the same thing serving. So where we're in a situation is we're talking down the business. We're deliberately talking down the business. In the case of the Republicans and the Conservatives, we're talking it down because that's how we're going to win, because we're going to get more of our electorate out than they're going to get of theirs.
Whenever we complain about manners, it often is about kids. I was actually on my way here to the studio, and there was a bunch of teenagers walking in my vicinity, and it was sort of like F this and F that. And it wasn't so much that they were trying to be rude to me. They just didn't see me. The very fact that I was in their presence, it just didn't register with them. I might as well, been a bush or a car or something like that. And I think this is true of teenagers throughout history. It's probably true of my generation, is that the only thing they care about is their peer group. That's the only thing they care about, is the approval of their peer group. They follow the moral and manners code of their peer group, however vulgar or coarse or whatever that may be. And the opinions of strangers, people who may be 5 feet away from them, but because they're 20 years older, they just don't care about them. And this is true online too. The person who may be being rude to others by being on their cell phone or texting, they may be behaving impeccably within their peer group and online within their community. And that's the only place they care about their reputation. So even though they're being rude to you, even though they're at Starbucks and they're texting, they may be saying something extremely well-mannered to the person on the other end of the text. It's just the people in the geographical vicinity of them. They don't care about us. They care about their community as defined online.
I want to follow up with the F-bomb with Susan. I see this all the time, where young people walk down the street or they're in a shopping mall or whatever, and they are dropping that F-bomb like it's any other word, like it's going out of style. In our generation, you'd never have done that. That was a word that you whispered quietly, and certainly never in public. Now, everybody does it, and they don't think it's a big deal. Is it me or is it them?
Well, I think it could be you, because for them it's punctuation.
Right.
And if they don't use it, they lose their status within their peer group. On the other hand, it doesn't make it right. And at some point, I suppose words like that start losing their impact, because before it was, showing how much of a rebel you are. Well, if everybody's doing it, you're not much of a rebel anymore. So what is the way to deal with that? Ridicule or ignore it or get used to it, tolerate it? It is part of, it's really in the perception of the person being offended. Because in those cases, those kids are not trying to offend anybody. They're just trying to fit in, as Jonathan says, with their peer group. So it's up to us whether we take offense. And we also have to ask ourselves, how important is that anyway? Or do we worry that when certain no-go areas and barriers are broken, what else is going to be broken? What else is up for grabs? And that's, I think, what makes us nervous and why, we've all become hall monitors or something, trying to, stave the tide. And I think there's a feeling it's going to get worse before it gets better.
If you're walking down the street, though, Dr. Rakoff, with a little kid, you don't want to hear F-bombs going off every 5 seconds.
In which case, you should never go to the movies. You should never watch half the cartoons on television. There's a way of words becoming sanitized. Almost all words for smell eventually turn lousy. Almost all words for sex become gradually naturalized into the parlance of the day. I mean, if you want rude, you read Chaucer. There's lots of rude in Chaucer. Read the satyr plays with which the Greeks ended every day of tragedies. It's full of F-bombs and all the other bombs that you might want. I might be living, I realize, in another world, but I think of myself as a kind of litmus test. I'll say, after a look at me, I'm a little old guy. If the world were really as Hobbesian, as cruel, as nasty, and as brutal as you guys are talking about, I wouldn't get from A to B on any given day. On the contrary, I get into the subway and I'm invariably offered a seat. When I drive my car, and I'm not a very good driver, as all members of my family will tell you, but when I get to a four-way, which we have in Toronto, 99.99 times out of 100, people observe the coming and the going in order.
You're here to get a really quite significant honor, if I may say. Let's tell everybody about this. The Royal Canadian Geographical Society's Gold Medal for your contribution to geographic literacy. What got you into geographic literacy in the first place?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what geographic literacy is, but this is on the citation for the award, I think. I just felt, as a result of all my travels, I was asked to be president of the Royal Geographical Society in England, which is quite an honour. And I thought, well, I've got to think carefully about geography. What do I feel about it? And I do think it's very, very important for people to understand where things are in the world, how to get around the world, not just virtually, but actually to travel and to see for themselves. Because I think the more contact we have with other people, other nations, the more we realise that, you know, that we are far more alike than we are different. And this, to me, makes for a safer world. So understanding the world and why we are different does not necessarily mean to say you're increasing hostility. Quite the opposite. I think it's actually a very good way of learning tolerance.
You went to a grade 7 class in Ottawa?
Yes.
How did that go?
Yeah, they were terrific, actually. Great,
Well,
great
kids are terrific, but my fear is they didn't know as much as you think they ought to have known. Is that true?
No, I think that's unfair on the kids. I didn't know what they didn't know. Okay. I just assumed that they would like to know what I knew. And that was all I wanted, was to get a good reaction out of them. And I showed them some slides, a little PowerPoint. And there were some of the places I've been looked pretty spectacular. I mean, K2, the second highest mountain in the world, the most dangerous and difficult mountain of all to climb, seen from a glacier. You know, it's just amazing. You get very excited. And they got excited at seeing all the various people, and people in Africa traveling on top of the train, not inside it, because there was no room inside, and me joining them. They liked all that. And they asked some very acute questions at the end, you know, for sort of kids coming to the end of a hard term. 12 and 13-year-olds. They were really engaged.
If they're 12 and 13, though, do they have any idea who you are?
I don't think they did, no. But whenever Python was mentioned, there was a sort of roar from the teacher's bench over to one side. Oh, yay! So I asked for questions, serious questions about the world, and one teacher says, "You know, could you show us your silly walk?" So I ended
Which you've never been asked before, I'm sure.
I ended up, well, my silly walk, of course, is not, as any Python aficionado knows, is not the exciting one. John Cleese's was the good one. I had the bad one, which I was trying to get government support to improve. However, I did that, and the kids loved that.
One of the things that, in fact, we've talked about on this program before, there was a study done, I think, at Memorial University in Newfoundland. They made headlines because one of the professors there did a pop quiz with her students to test their knowledge of geography. Yeah. She hands out a blank map, and she has a simple question. Put Europe, Asia, North America, South America, Africa on the map. And 3/4 of the students typically fail that test. These are university students in Canada. Yeah. Does that surprise you?
well, I don't know if it surprises me. It makes me very, very sad. I just can't believe that. But then I was brought up on maps. I love maps, and I just knew, I looked at the globe all the time. Maybe it's just nowadays people have more options. When I was stuck in Sheffield, I wanted to know about the world. I just had to look at, I had a great atlas at home. I just loved looking at this atlas. So I knew the outlines of all these countries. But maybe that's just because I enjoy geography. I'm not saying everyone should, but to know where the continents are and where London is vis-a-vis Washington or Ottawa, I mean, that seems absolutely basic. And it does sound quite sad that people of that age and that kind of education don't know the basics of literacy.
I hate to make you feel worse. They also asked them, what is the ocean right next to our province? And half of them couldn't tell you it was the Atlantic.
No.
That's...
No. Is it?
'Tis.
You got me there.
Same one your country's on.
I thought it was the English Channel. That's all over the world, isn't it?
No. Do you have a sort of a checklist of, to be geographically literate, you have to at least know A, B, C, D? Do you have that kind of a list?
Well, I don't, but I would think basically the shape of the world, the main mountain ranges, the Himalaya, the Andes, and the shape of the continents, the size of the seas, they fit quite neatly into place. And I think, yeah, I think that's a sort of basic, and know your Arctic from your Antarctic. It's not difficult once you start filling them in. You just do them as triangles. You don't have to do all the coastline. But I think people should know the shape of the continents and where they all fit.
I'm with you on this, but then there are probably some 15 to 20-year-olds nowadays who say, I don't need to know any of this, and what I don't know I can find in Google in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
What do we say to that?
Well, you're not going to have your Google, you're not going to have your iPad with you all the time, Go out there, walk the place for yourself, see, smell it. You're not going to get any of the kind of interaction that you get from traveling. Unless you go there. You can't physically feel what it's like going uphill from just looking at a Google map. And also, I think Google Maps, Google Earth is a fantastic thing for finding, it's a tool, but it is not the whole answer to it at all. I think look less at screens, get out there and look at the real mountains and, swim in the real lakes and eat food, that's growing there. And wear the costumes, do the dances, whatever. You can't do that on Google.
As you think about this generation of young people, if they get increasingly turned off from geography, or they don't have the geographic literacy that you think they ought to have, take us 10, 20 years down the road. What do you think the consequences of that are?
I think consequences are possibly that people can be much more easily manipulated. If you don't know the difference between the countries, if you think there's just all the countries are the same as the big companies of the world, then I think you're going to lose a feeling of identity and what's special. And I think that would be a great shame, because I do think history and geography do very important things. They both tell us about the past, inform us about the present, and hopefully prepare us for the future. And I think just not knowing the history, not knowing the background, just being able to switch on every now and then, you lose contact with what it's all about, I think.
Many children can be found playing with their Xbox or Wii, more comfortable with kicking up their heels in an imaginary forest rather than outside in nature, cavorting in a real forest. Artist Robert Bateman wants to change that, and he joins us now to tell us about his efforts to connect children with nature. And it's great to have you back in this studio.
Great to be back, too.
What was it, 15 years ago you were last here? Something like that.
It must be. It was during one of my books, I think. I was on a book tour.
So this is long overdue, and we're glad to have you back.
It's an honor.
I must confess, in reading about your background, this term I had not heard before until I heard of it connected with you. A nature deficit disorder. We all know about attention deficit disorder, but you think kids are suffering from nature deficit disorder.
I do indeed. And you said connect kids with nature. I'd like to say reconnect. Because all through evolution, and even when we weren't kids, human beings played out in nature, even when we weren't human beings. All creatures are out in nature until about 15 years ago. There's been a huge change. I'm told that the average young person in North America spends 7 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't take the weekend off looking at a screen.
Frightening.
That's almost an 8-hour day.
So it's in our DNA to be outdoors, but somehow we've lost it.
Indeed, and these new electronic things, whether kids are looking at the either handheld screens all the way up to TV screens, are so seductive to all kinds of wiring in our brain. And kids since the 50s have been wired to start with watching Saturday morning cartoons, which was kind of the beginning. I used to give talks in the 60s saying that the parents of the future's idea of family values will be based on the Flintstones, because this is what the kids are. Now, these are the parents of these kids, and to them it's okay, keep a kid quiet, put them on a screen.
Now, we know about the issues around obesity with children sitting on the couch and just piggybacking watching, but you've got, I guess you've got a more profound concern, which is if we get disconnected from nature, it's in some respects the beginning of the end of so much. Can you go into that?
Yes, absolutely. There's a great book by the guru. There's a movement starting that nobody knows about it. We're going to try to change that. Richard Louv, he's a San Diego, you might have interviewed him.
Did he coin the term?
He coined the term.
Nature
he wrote the
deficit
book. He wrote the book Last Child in the Woods. And he says that if kids spend a significant time out in nature, you have less obesity, obviously, less attention deficit disorder, less depression, less suicide, less drug abuse, less alcohol abuse, and higher marks. And what are the main problems facing kids? I just gave you the list.
Okay, so what is it about nature that reconnecting with it takes that away?
It's magic. It's a mystery. Let me give you a couple of examples. Well, one in our local, I live on Salt Spring Island, in our local school there.
British Columbia.
British Columbia, yeah, sorry. Our local school there, Fulford, before they had a budget for the jungle gym, the kids just played around out in nature, climbed trees and jumped back and forth across the creek. Then they got the budget for the jungle gym and the man-made stuff, apparatus, and the principal at the time said immediately the kids' behavior went down in class. More bullying, more arguing, less attention in class than when they just played out in nature, climbed trees, got all muddy. We don't really know why, but there's a lot of...
you think there's a connection?
Absolutely. There's a lot of work being done now in physiology and universities all over the place on the connection between brains and the sort of unstructured area of nature. There's a movement in Japan, and this is my last example on this, it's called forest therapy. And they take uptight office workers from downtown Tokyo. If anybody's uptight, it's an office worker in downtown Tokyo. And they go for a walk in the woods. And by the way, Tokyo is full of little bits of forests in the shrines and temples and parks they have. All they do is go for a walk in the woods for under an hour. Their blood pressure comes down. Their cortisol, fight or flight hormone comes down. Their acuity improves. Not hormones, but the immune system improves.
Okay.
And they go back in the office, way better, more efficient workers. And all they do is go for a walk in the woods. There's evidence that the trees are spritzing stuff that your cells, of course, evolved for, like the pine trees. You walk in the woods and you want to take a breath, and your cells rejoice. And now, I don't know. There's huge research being done on it, but it's magic.
All you know
is real.
It works.
It works. Yeah.
Attention deficit disorder is a real clinical psychological term.
Yes.
Is nature deficit disorder a real clinical psychological term?
No. Well, Richard Louv says he doesn't want to call it a real clinical because he's a sharp journalist. But there's more and more evidence that it is.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review. You can see all of those programs in their entirety on our website, theagenda.tvo.org, on our iTunes channel, or on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/theagenda.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.